of Industry, Investment and Commerce, along with Dr. Grace McLean, the Permanent Secretary Acting in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Cassandra Troop, the Chief Education Officer Acting at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, will join us via our Zoom platform as well as Mr. Howard Lynch, the Director of Policy Planning and Development at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and Ms. Sherry Ann Hamill, the Director Acting of Program Coordination, Planning and Strategic Initiatives at the Office of the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health and Wellness, all joining us via Zoom, and of course, Mr. Oral Shaw, the Senior Director in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Lots of information this morning. You would have recognized yesterday we opened the budget debate with the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, the Honorable Nigel Clark. And of course, this morning, one full year after having our first COVID case in Jamaica, we have the first vaccinations of COVID, persons who will be vaccinated with COVID. Actually, it has taken place, and so Minister Williams will give us a quick brief, and certainly those who are on the Zoom platform from the Ministry of Health will be able to assist with that as well. And so this morning, we invite Minister Williams to give us a brief of Cabinet deliberations, and of course then other questions can flow from members of the media or who are on the Zoom platform. Minister.
Good morning, everyone. Let me recognize the Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, our Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Dr. Norman Dunn, Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. He joins us on Zoom this morning. Let me recognize as well other team members who are with him. Dr. Grace McLean, our Permanent Secretary Acting at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Cassandra Troop, who is also taking advantage of being with us on Zoom despite her being on vacation. Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. Mr. Howard Lynch, Director, Policy Planning and Development at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Ms. Shari Ann Hamill, Director, Acting Program Coordinator, Planning and Strategic Initiatives from the Office of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health and Wellness. Both come to us via Zoom, as well as Mr. Oral Shaw, Senior Director in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Let me acknowledge as well all the other team members from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, members of the media, members of other stakeholders who are joining us at this moment. We begin with the decisions from Cabinet, the first being the transfer of the portfolio of the Micro Investment Development Agency, MIDA, to the National Export-Import Bank, EXIM. Cabinet gave approval for the transfer of the portfolio of the Micro Investment Development Agency, MIDA, to the National Export-Import Bank, or EXIM. In recent years, MIDA had increased its lending to the micro-productive sector due to the positive spin-off from supporting value-added enterprises. Several steps were taken towards winding up the MIDA in keeping with previous decisions of Cabinet to modernize and streamline public bodies. The agency's functional mandate, a single staff member, and fixed assets of the entity were not under consideration, as these would be transferred and managed by the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce in keeping with standard asset management practices. The MIDA portfolio will be managed as a concessionary revolving loan program for productive micro enterprises. Moving on to other decisions of Cabinet. This relates to a project approval, Government of Jamaica European Union Cooperation Program, a Jamaican Path from Hills to Ocean project. Cabinet gave approval for the project called A Jamaican Path from Hills to Ocean for grant financing by the European Union Global Climate Change Alliance for 4.9 million euros. Cabinet also approved counterpart financing in cash and kind from the government of Jamaica of 1.1 million euros. The overall objective of the project is to increase resilience to climate change and reduce poverty through the implementation of an integrated landscape technology, a process that provides a basic framework for balancing competing demands and integrating policies for multiple land uses within a given area. Integrated landscape management has emerged as an innovative approach to land management that reduces land use conflicts, empower communities, and achieves development objectives. Integrated land management is built on the principles of participation, negotiation, and cooperation. As such, it requires long-term collaboration among diverse stakeholders. Such an approach will reduce the vulnerability of the Jamaican ecosystems from the hills to the ocean in accordance with the guiding principles of integrated and sustainable landscape management. It will also strengthen the resilience of communities within the targeted watersheds against the adverse effects of climate change. Our third cabinet decision has to do with technical assistance by the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, to the Ministry of Health and Wellness on strengthening health systems and services. Cabinet gave approval for the Ministry of Health and Wellness to enter into an agreement with the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, for the provision of technical assistance to strengthen Jamaica's health systems and services through a voluntary contribution. To secure this technical assistance, Cabinet also approved the disbursement of $800,000 as a voluntary contribution to PAHO. The coordination between primary and hospital care and the organizational arrangements of the regional health authorities needed to be simplified and reoriented towards health outcomes instead of financial and administrative outputs. The infrastructure of hospitals and medical equipment at the priority facilities needed improvement to ensure that delivery of health services were efficient and cost-effective. PAHO will provide technical assistance in the development of the primary health care policy and strategic plan and the development of an implementation plan for strengthening the steering role of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The assistance will also streamline the functions of the regional health authorities, conduct a needs assessment for health technologies, and the development of a health technology assessment framework in the public health sector. The development of the human resources of health gap analysis, strategic 5-year policy, action plan for human resources of health, and the review of the National Public Health Laboratories will also be a part of the technical assistance. We move on now to the accession to the International Convention on the Simplification and Harmonization of Customs Procedures, and this is the revised Kyoto Convention. Cabinet gave approval for Jamaica's accession to the International Convention on the Simplification and Harmonization of Customs Procedures. Cabinet also approved for Jamaica to be bound by the mandatory provisions of the Body and General Annex and issuing of draft instructions to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade to prepare the instrument of accession. The convention is a World Customs Organization trade facilitation instrument which was adopted in 1999 and enacted in February 2006. It is considered the blueprint for modern and efficient customs procedures in the 21st century. Jamaica's customs agency has made great strides towards accomplishing its goal of becoming a modern, world-class customs administration, which is aligned to the government's thrust towards modernization of the public sector and fostering a conducive business environment. The convention is aligned with the World Trade Organization Agreement on Trade Facilitation, as well as with Jamaica's Trade Facilitation Roadmap. The next decision of Cabinet has to do with Jamaica's first report on the Domestic Workers Convention. Cabinet gave approval for the submission of Jamaica's first report on the Domestic Workers Convention to the International Labour Organization, ILO. You may recall that on October 11, 2016, Jamaica ratified C-189, Domestic Workers Convention 2011 of the International Labour Organization, which stipulates the safeguards for the welfare of domestic workers globally. Member states, such as Jamaica, are required to submit annual reports to the International Labour Organization on the agreed provisions of the Domestic Workers Convention, and that report that is submitted should outline the measures undertaken by the respective countries to enact the provisions of the Domestic Worker Convention. Jamaica's report to the International Labour Organization provides an overview of the measures the government has instituted to enforce the convention, including the applicable laws enacted by Jamaica and the systems Jamaica has in place. The report also noted the Pay and Conditions of Employment branch of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, to which domestic workers may report any actions that are not in keeping with decent work. Convention number 189 offers specific protection to domestic workers. It lays down basic rights and principles and requires states to take a series of measures with a view to making decent work a reality for domestic workers. We commend the Ministry of Labour and Social Security for the submission of Jamaica's first report on the Domestic Workers Convention to the International Labour Organization. We move now to the reports that Cabinet received and approved. The Cabinet received and approved the following annual reports and/or financial statements to be tabled in Parliament: Port Authority of Jamaica, 2017-2018, and Jamaica Agricultural Society, 2018. In terms of contracts, Cabinet gave approval for the supply and installation of 175 hospital beds for the Southeast Regional Health Authority, SERA, in the amount of $70,897,356.25, including GCT of 15% to Advance Procurement Limited. Cabinet also gave approval for the award of 3 contracts for the provision of public relations services for the Jamaica Tourist Board in the United States of America, Lot 1, in Canada, Lot 2, and in the United Kingdom, Ireland, Nordic region, Lot 3, for a 3-year period beginning April 1, 2021 to March 31, 2024, in the amounts as follows. Lot 1 to the Lou Harmon Group in the amount of US $2,500,000. Lot 2 to Fever Pitch Marketing Communications Incorporated in the amount of US $408,000, and Lot 3 to 4 Communications Limited in the amount of US $612,000. That concludes the Cabinet decisions for the period under review. We will now turn to the education sector. O'Shea Meeks an 11-year-old student, at the time in May of last year, who was attending Snowdon Primary and Infant School in Manchester, submitted to UNICEF her diary as part of a UNICEF series looking at how COVID-19 is impacting children and families. Oshia Meeks wrote as follows: March 12, 2020, will be a day I will never forget. When our principal told us that the government announced that there would be a closure for all schools for 14 days, we were sad to leave our friends, but we were happy to be going home. I also thought 14 days were pretty short. The next day, I woke up at 6 a.m., just like I always do, because I forgot that there would be no school. I immediately started to wonder how I would continue my classwork, given that I'm in grade 6. I also worried how I would be able to prepare for my PEP exams since I was no longer at school. Luckily, my teacher, Miss Cheddar, was way ahead of us. About 12 noon, she contacted our parents via an active WhatsApp group and told them that she would be sending our classwork there. I was so elated to know that I could continue my learning. Days went by, and the 14 days were extended. I was getting my work done each and every day, and I was even learning new stuff. This I found pretty cool. Later in the month, my teacher introduced us to Google Classroom and Zoom, which made homeschooling easier and even more fun. It also gave me an opportunity to bond more with my mom, as she now became my home teacher. I was at home learning, but I loved it. COVID-19 has caused me to be extra cautious. I treat everyone as if they are infected with the virus. I practice social distancing as best as possible, wear my mask if I have to go out, which is only when necessary, and I wash my hands more often now. I also try my best to follow every rule handed down to me, not just for myself, but for everyone else around me and those people in my community. I realized that I am now even more essential in my community, and I have a very important role to keep my community members safe. Can you imagine a child not playing with her friends? This quarantine has stopped me from seeing my friends face to face, but it has not stopped us from communicating. COVID-19 has also helped me to be more helpful in the house. I'm helping out in the kitchen more. Thanks to the cooking videos, I can prepare almost any meal by myself now. Now that I'm at home learning, sometimes I help my dad with the animals. Being at home has been a fun learning experience and had helped me to help my family even more. I continue to hope and pray that this, referring to the COVID-19 pandemic, will be over soon so that I can get back to my normal life of going back to school, church, and the fun places I used to go. I also hope that my country can return to its normal state and rebuild the economy. I am anticipating the glorious day when I hear the news that Jamaica is COVID-19 free. For now, I'll continue to enjoy learning from home and enjoying myself with my family at home. Oshia Meeks, 11 years old at the time she wrote this. Well, Oshia, unfortunately, as you can see, we in Jamaica and the rest of the world are 1 year into the pandemic. Today, March 10, marks the date the health minister informed us that COVID-19 had landed on our shores. We commend you, Oshia, and thousands of students across Jamaica who wake up every day despite the challenges to continue enjoy learning. And we commend you for having adapted to the approaches for teaching and learning that the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has made available. As all of us live through this pandemic in the education sector, we've had to make many changes in terms of how our students connect with their teachers. We've had to make changes to the exit exam. Our grade 6 students last year were not able to take all the components of their PEP 6 exam, if you recall. For this year, we had all hopes. Back in December of 2020, we anticipated that by now, our grade 6 students would have already sat the ability component of the PEP 6. That was not to be. Based on the COVID figures, we had to move the date to March 25, 2021 from February 23, 2021. Here we are on March 10, 2021. We believe that at this time, as we completed our consultations with our stakeholders in the education sector, that our students would be best served by utilizing a similar format that was used in 2020 for the placement of our grade 6 students into high schools. We now outline for you our parents, students, principals, and teachers, and other stakeholders further changes for this current academic year that will end in June 2021. Starting with PEP 6, which is PEP for our grade 6 students. As you are aware, PEP 6 has 3 components. Component 1, the ability test. Component 2, performance task exams in language arts and mathematics. And component 3, which is the curriculum-based tests, language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. For this academic year, as we did for last year, we will only require our grade 6 students to sit the ability test. This test is now scheduled for Wednesday, May 26, 2021, instead of March 25, 2021. The administration of the ability test will be in all primary level institutions, presided over by external persons contracted by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Given that our grade 6 students will only be required to take the ability test component of the PEP 6, how do we know who goes to what high school? We will use the same methodology we did last year. We will combine the results of the ability test to be taken on Wednesday, May 26, 2021, with the results of the grade 4 performance task exams in language arts and mathematics that the current grade 6 students would have sat in 2019. Because in 2019, our students who are in grade 6 currently would have been in grade 4. So we'll combine the results of the ability test to be taken on Wednesday, May 26, with the results of the grade 4 performance task that students would have sat in 2019. Parents already have those grade 4 scores, and so they know the stage at which their child is. So the focus now is only on the ability test. The combination of those two, the ability test and the scores from the performance task test that were done in grade 4 in 2019 will determine the placement for high school. We have data that is guiding us regarding the grade 4 performance task and the ability test to reliably place our students in high schools. It will be the combination of these that the technical persons at the ministry consider to be the only method of placement that would be considered reliable. I am advised that the use of the grade 4 performance task scores alone as a placement mechanism would not give enough data points to reliably rank students for placement. It is therefore important that the ability test be done on Wednesday, May 26, 2021. So having used the ability test and the performance task exams from grade 4 to place our students in high school, what arrangements are there for the makeup of areas of the grade 6 curriculum that were not covered? I'm sure that's a question that's on the minds of all our parents. The ministry will administer diagnostic tests, not to be confused with the ability tests, at the grade 6 level to gather data on the students' achievements of the National Standard Curriculum. Data from this assessment will be sent to the high schools in which the students are placed. This diagnostic instrument will be administered by classroom teachers. You may be aware that the National Standards Curriculum allows for the aspects of the curriculum that were not covered at the primary level to be covered at the secondary level at grade 7. This would require, however, that the number of school days be increased. The technical staff is preparing a retention document to lay out what criteria we use to determine which students are retained in their current class. Once that is prepared, we will consult with our stakeholders, and of course, this will be communicated to all Jamaicans. We know that the changes we have made are not perfect, but we believe them to be a practical approach to ensure transition to high school in an equitable manner. We know that many of our students were barely or not at all engaged with any of the modalities. There are some of our students who have not opened their books since this current year began. We know this because I was told of textbooks that are uncollected at schools, and principals and teachers have been unable to reach parents or students. We realize that we're going to need a massive intervention program for those students. Some of our students are going to repeat grades so that they can get back to where they were before the pandemic. We know as well that we at the ministry have to redouble our efforts to go beyond where we were when we started in the pandemic. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is committed to getting our boys and girls to connect again with our schools and begin the journey towards recovery. I know we will recover stronger. We now turn to CSEC and CAPE. Last Wednesday, March 2nd, 2021, CXC would have informed the region that COSOD, CARICOM's Council for Human and Social Development, which comprises all the ministers of education across the Caribbean region, approved the following: that CXC will administer the Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Exam, CAPE, Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC, and Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, CCLSC. All these exams will be administered in their original format. That is, for CAPE and CSEC, papers 1, 2, and 031, which is a school-based assessment, or paper 032 for private candidates, and for CCLC, papers 1 and 2. COSOD also approved that the examinations will be scheduled during the period June to July 2021. CSEC and CAPE written exams will commence on 14 of June and end on 16 of July 2021. Results will be made available to the Ministries of Education in the last week of September 2021. An extension will be given for the deadline by which students can decide to defer the sitting of the 2021 examinations. All candidates will be required to indicate their intent for deferral by May 1, 2021. And taking into consideration the loss of learning many students would have experienced, CXC will share with the Ministries of Education for communication to candidates the broad topics to be assessed on paper 2. This will be done 5 weeks in advance of the start of the exam. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has prepared guidelines for those students who would like to defer the 2021 sitting of the CXC exams. These guidelines are to ensure that we manage the process efficiently, effectively, and judiciously. In addition to the ministry bulletins that will be sent to our principals, we will arrange a virtual meeting with our principals as well to detail the process for application for deferral, the considerations or criteria for approval to defer, and we will also detail for our schools how we treat with the retained or deferred students. In conclusion, all of us have been living with COVID-19 for the past year. We know now that COVID-19 has hit the education sector quite hard. However, this we know, our students are resilient, and the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information will do all we can to help our boys and girls recover to not only where they were before the pandemic, but well beyond that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Minister Williams, for your comprehensive update. And of course, we are here at the banquet hall at Jamaica House, and we are observing all the COVID-19 protocols. This morning is quite historic for us as well, Minister, including your updates from Cabinet. We do have an update as well from the vaccination center downtown Kingston, where the first set of vaccinations on COVID-19 have occurred. And we have on our Zoom platform as well representatives from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and to the Minister of Health and Wellness right at the vaccination center, who can give us an update during our post-cabinet briefing as to exactly what happened and how things are flowing there. So if we could, Minister, let's just then go over to Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, who can give a quick update and briefing to you and the rest of Jamaica at post-cabinet. And then we certainly can take some questions from members of the media about the substantive post-cabinet matters, as well as issues you raised concerning the Ministry of Education and examinations being rescheduled. Minister Tufton, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Naomi. Good morning, ministers, and good morning, Jamaica. So we are here, myself, as well as a host of public health officials who are manning this Good Samaritan facility at Hero Circle. The day started very well at 8 o'clock with our first recipient of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, Nurse Yetman. She's a public health nurse working in the Southeast region, and she will give her account of what happened, but she seems very fine, and she's very happy for having that experience. We've had other very important persons who qualify under the vulnerable group, including former Prime Minister Bruce Golding and PJ Patterson, who are in the room as we speak. And they both received their vaccines, and they are now in observation, waiting for 15 minutes to complete the process. Beyond that, we've had a number of other public health workers, senior citizens, Professor Elena Shearer, and many others. But it's a good day. We have 18 to 20 other locations across the country administering today. We expect to give over 3,000 persons, frontline workers, the vaccines. So far, it's going well. But this location was used as a demonstration location, bringing key influencers who fall in the vulnerable group so that they can tell their story and hopefully encourage others to be a part of it. So I'm going to ask you to just give her an account.
Morning. I'm just here to advise that I have received my COVID-19 vaccine, and I'm happy to be the first public health person to receive it in this facility. It was a pleasant experience. The staff were very warm, and the system was smooth in terms of moving from one station to the next. And I am presently not having any pain or any discomfort as a result, any side effects or anything as a result of pregnancy. I'm encouraging everyone to have your vaccine when it is available to you, so that we can get back to life as normal as soon as possible. Encouraging you also to continue to wear your mask, sanitize, and to do your social distancing, avoid crowds, and keep safe while we try to protect the rest of the population from COVID-19 through vaccine. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Back to you, Naomi.
All right, thank you so much. So in our post-cabinet media briefing first, we linked live with Minister Christopher Tufton at the Vaccination Center, and the first person vaccinated in Jamaica, Nurse Marcia Thomas Yetman, at the Good Samaritan facility at Hero Circle, downtown Kingston. And so now, members of the media, may we ask that you use the raise hand feature in our Zoom platform to indicate any questions you may have for Minister Williams and or any of the other support persons who are online. Welcome and good morning to all the persons from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, including the acting chief, the acting deputy, let me go again, Miss Dorothy Campbell, the Deputy Chief Education Officer, who is also acting for Dr. Troop as well. And Dr. Troop is also online. Of course, Dr. Troop, the country's Chief Education Officer acting. We also have Dr. Norman Dunn, the Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, who is online with us as well. And so members of the media, you know the ways of using the raise hand feature. May we invite you to do that as we entertain questions from you for the ministers on platform, and of course, the substantive Ministers Williams and Morgan, who are here this morning. Am I seeing the hand of Javon Keys from TVJ? Is it Javon? I believe Javon, good morning. Let's see if we, and could you
Good morning, everyone.
Yes, wonderful. You've unmuted. Wonderful. And it's very important that you unmute your mics ahead of, being placed on. Good morning, Javon. Can you ask your question?
Good morning, Naomi. Good morning, everyone. My question is regarding the decision for CXC. Now, I know it's not a decision that just for Jamaica, it was a regional decision, but I wanted to have an idea as to whether or not this decision regarding the possibility of deferral and sitting the exams as they are originally. That's the decision that the ministry ideally wanted to come out of these discussions. And I'm saying that in the context of concerns for if what these deferrals will have if students decide to not do the exams this year, what that will do to the system as it relates to the knock-on effect of students repeating and the provisions that the ministry will need to make in that regard. So was this the best decision you would think, or was the ministry satisfied with this decision made by the CXC?
Thank you for that question. Based on all the consultations that we did locally, based on the 2 meetings that we had at the subcommittee of CARICOM COSOD, looking at all the options that were presented, the pros and cons of the options, we have to say that this decision was the best that all of us, sitting together, all of us as ministers of education across the region, or technical persons at the ministry here in Jamaica, consulting with our principals and all the other stakeholders, at this time, that is the best decision that we feel would be also in the best interest of our students. If you recall, last year, there were changes to the CSEC exam, and you would have seen the results of that. There are many dissatisfied students, students who are straight A students who would have gotten a grade well below what they were expecting. There were other students with other issues. Right now, CXC has not even completed going through all the requests for regrading of exams and so on. And so it was felt that we should not tamper with what has worked in the past. Let us continue with that original format. Yes, we could give more time for students to take it in consideration of the COVID-19 pandemic, allow the option to defer if students feel they're not ready. But again, given all the information that we had, we felt that that was the best decision at this time.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any further questions on the platform for the ministers or any of the support persons who may be able to shed light and clarify any matter that was raised or discussed this morning at post-cabinet media briefing. I see Mr. Keys trying to get a follow-up question. All right, Mr. Keys. Yes, go ahead, please.
Not so much a follow-up, but the last part of my question was, what kind of provisions is the ministry now considering for that possibility of having a number of students repeating or choosing to sit another year of fifth form or fourth form, as it may be?
Okay, so the ministry has begun to look at the framework to use for the students who would have indicated that they'd like to defer all or some of the exams. And as I said earlier on, this will be communicated to our principals so that they understand the dates for deferral, exactly what needs to be done. If you take an exam this year, to ensure that the other part is available next year, and so on. There are many details to be worked out, but I know already I've seen a draft of the plan, and in short order, we will be communicating the details to all our stakeholders.
All right, thank you so much, Minister. I see no further hands raised this morning at our post-cabinet media briefing, so may I, and Mr. Keys, well, we'll give you a final question, sir, and then we can wrap up. So Mr. Keys now has a follow-up. So Mr. Keys, go ahead, please.
Well, this is actually not a follow-up. I'm hoping Minister Morgan will be able to give an update on the progress of the Amber Alert audit regarding the recent breaches. I'm not sure if an update is available and whether or not he'd be able to give that.
Okay, Minister.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Keys. I have not received any further information. What I do know is that steps have been taken to intervene to secure whatever vulnerabilities existed, and that the Ministry of National Security, working with the relevant partners, have been doing a lot of work on that. I suspect you may want to reach out to the Ministry of National Security to get further updates on that one. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And there ends our post-cabinet media briefing for today. Thank you so much to all our partners on our Zoom platform, members of the media, and certainly officials from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and of course to Ministers Williams and Morgan, who are here with us in the banquet hall at the Office of the Prime Minister, Jamaica House. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again week after next for another post-cabinet media briefing. Good morning.